Hi everyone, my name is Untitled Chapter. Before I start, to remind you again, this video is about, talking about things that affect our lifestyle. And, if we're talking about trending topics, we're talking about it because, it's something that we can glean some wisdom from and learn from. That's the whole purpose. Whatever we go through, what can we learn from? If it's entertainment, what can I learn from that? I'm not just, chuckling on the chair and making fun of someone. I'm deciding what I can learn from that. So today, being that I've been reviewing this show, Love and Marriage, Huntsville, and we've been throwing around this word narcissist everywhere right now. I'm not going to use the term narcissist. Let's use the term, a toxic person. So let's kind of go into the definition. But before that, guys, love you to like the video, make a comment, and subscribe. All right, so if we're talking about toxic, persons, what is a toxic person and what are you seeing? This would be someone, first and foremost, I think, and a lot of these, I'm not using the term narcissist for a reason because I'm tired of hearing it. We've begun to use it quite loosely for everyone now, because the truth is, at certain points in our lives and with certain actions, we do have a tendency to maybe display a trait or two. But typically for those who are considered, toxic personalities, they're displaying a good number of these traits simultaneously, literally at the same time, back to back to back to back. Whereas we as regular people might just do one in certain times of our lives and just kind of flip back and forth. So that's why I want to talk about it now. We say, oh, this is narcissism. But if we just use it as a general umbrella, as a toxic personality, I would say this is someone definitely has an inflated sense of self. They're walking around and they think they're better than you. And their way of doing that or emphasizing that is their desire and need to manipulate you to do their bidding. And they do this in many different ways. First of all, someone who wants to control you is not necessarily upfront and you're at the first meeting going to look like a lion. No, they're going to be really charming. A lot of them could be really good looking, very handsome, very beautiful, and just kind of reel you in. So initially you don't even know what you've been hit with. You just know this person, oh, this person's interested in me. And they do have a way of picking their victims too. They'll pick those who may not be totally confident, because that way nobody's looking for hard prey. I mean, maybe as you get your PhD in being a toxic person, you might be looking for a challenge, but a lot of the time they're looking for something in that person's armor, a hole in the armor where they can kind of seep through, break through, and then begin to take over you, because they get some joy from it. And then when they begin to converse with you, I feel like they probably are people who want to overtake a conversation, sell you a narrative, make you see only what they're saying, and then kind of disagree with everything else.
Derek Jackson.
They definitely are people who, they feed off compliments. They can't get enough of it. It's like you constantly feed them and feed them. They thrive and they survive on this. Like that's just like air for them. They need to be complimented. They need to be told how amazing they are.
Someone like this.
Another trait, they lack empathy. Because sometimes, notwithstanding, somebody can offend you or do something, and even in the midst of that, you'll reflect like, what? I feel bad for them. But someone who's a narcissist will do with you as they will, and if they discard you, there is no concern as to how you're going to survive. They don't care. They're moving on to the next victim. They don't care. So going on to the next. And then you might see with people who are considered, toxic, they don't necessarily, they kind of attack relationships, but if you look at their circle of friends, do they have consistent, stable, long-term friendships? Because when you're a friend with someone, you have lesser a motivation to accept and receive any kind of nonsense or stupid behavior. And so you'll find someone who has a toxic personality not being able to keep friends. Like there's always this back and forth. There's this warring period, and makeup is not like a consistent relationship with friends, because the friends would have drawn their boundaries, like whenever. So yeah, you might see that, like they may have friends, but they're falling out with their friends all the time. You'll find them in the relationships, other than just, trying to control them. They also, and that's part of them breaking them down. They constantly pick, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. Oh, you're wearing that, you look like, they look for your weaknesses and they try and get a rise out of you. They're always trying to do something. And what that process is, I believe, is they try to break you down so they can now build you up, your broken pieces, into the shape they desire. Sounds so dark, but there are people like that. And sometimes they don't come into the room wearing a sign. Another thing they do, which is common, is gaslighting. And you hear this term, gaslighting, all the time. That simply means when somebody does something to you and plays it down. So if I give you an example, I see you, walking into the room, and I say something sarcastic about, how you look, like you walking like you're okay. For example, you walk in, you're a woman, you're walking in some heels, and I say something about, wow, you walking out of there like a linebacker. And she looks at me and like, Lola, what you mean by that? Oh, I just played down. I just kidding. You know me? I was just like just play down like I didn't say nothing, but I did, and I meant it. But now I'm trying to confuse you and make you feel crazy. Like, did she say it? Did she? Like, me? No, what me? No, girl, you must be mistaken. I didn't say that. Twist it right in front of your eyes and you be confused, literally confused. Cause haven't I read? Quick. They're quick thinkers. You can't. I would definitely say a narcissist or someone with a toxic personality definitely could be considered to be intelligent. Yeah, because they will play chess with you. They will play. If you're not paying attention, they definitely can play chess with you. So moving on to the next thing. They have a definite ability sometimes to, I guess, blur the boundaries of the relationship. If it's one way for them, it's another way for you. So what's good for them is not good for you. Like it doesn't go back and forth. They can't take what they dish. It's constant. They won't apologize. They continue to go on, and then if you suddenly, wake up and smell the coffee and like, this is not working for me, you get some sense of self, they panic, and then they try and draw you in, like they play games, and so you do see a lot of females kind of tied up in this. Maybe some males, but I see more females than anything else kind of tied up in these relationships with toxic people. And so really, I'm not an expert, but just an observation and seeing, I think some things, I'd say maybe ways you could maybe disarm, deflect, protect yourself from someone who has a toxic personality is by, I think the first and foremost is, and maybe if you begin to put that even bore you come into contact with them, they may not have maybe to gain hold onto who you are. First thing is, creating your boundaries and keeping those boundaries, holding on to those boundaries for your dear life. Don't let go. Because when they begin to see that they don't have that power to move you and make you do what you don't want to do, that decreases their power. And if that's constant, if they didn't wish you well, then that their presence, they soon would kind of leave that area. That's one thing. It's like, create those boundaries. Someone's not going to talk to you a certain way. Certain things are not acceptable in a relationship. Even with a friendship, we do have, we have it in friendships, we have it in family members, we have it in parents. And there's certain things that that don't agree with who you are and who you are in your spirit and your soul. Don't accept it. You will clearly say, and this is without any, anger or sadness, clearly, this is what's acceptable and this isn't. If it falls out of these lines, then I'm going to have to draw back and maybe we can talk when you can respect the boundaries I've created for us. This is definitely something you have to stick with. I think it's probably one of the biggest things. Create those boundaries and stick with those boundaries, because the minute you move those boundaries, you let the devil in. I think another thing too is sometimes, if this is new for you, because it probably happens all the time, but we haven't given it a name. Another thing you could do is definitely kind of, watch that person and see how they operate. And you'll watch them in a way that they don't know you're watching them. And how do I explain that? It's like they do certain things and, instead of reacting, just make a mental note. And then after a period of time, go back over those mental notes and see, what do they do when you say this? What do they do when you say this? Well, how do they behave? Like, there's sometimes, we have this, our intuition tells us something, right? And so certain things, even if it doesn't make sense at the time, maybe take a note of it. Take a note of that date and time. Sometimes when your mind tells you something and you note it, it will come back at another time. And if you can link the dots, you're like, that makes sense. I remember a long time ago, when I still worked in retail pharmacy, I had someone come into me with a prescription for a narcotic. Something didn't feel right. I didn't know what it was, but something wasn't right. Checked the prescription, it looked right. I called the doctor. The doctor said something didn't feel right. I was like, okay, fine, I let it go. Not maybe exactly a month later, the same individual came. Prescription for that same medication, but with a different name. Yes. Got them. Got you. And I took care of that. But that just kind of emphasized, like, when you feel something isn't right, something isn't right. You may not be able to prove it at that time, but make a note of it and just wait. It's going to reveal itself. I'm telling you, it's going to reveal itself. But a lot of times we forget, things tend to get in the way. Life takes over and we forget. But I'm telling you, when your consciousness tells you and you get that sense, but you can't prove it, something is not right. It's real. It's real. Another thing, so I would just say, just kind of watch and begin to take notes. Probably make real notes. If you live with this toxic person, maybe, have these notes hidden somewhere. But just keep your eyes and your ears peeled. It'll begin to reveal itself. Those things can't hide for long. I'd say the next thing is protecting your space. If you're not in a relationship with them, in a spot where you're actually sharing space with them, then if it's just someone you know as a friend or someone, we can't typically avoid them totally, but in measured doses. If this is somebody you share space with, find a way to, if you can, safely, a time out. So you have time to reflect and figure things out. Because if I think of it like the show I was reviewing, Love and Marriage, Huntsville, Mel seemed stronger and clearer once she left. She went to stay with her brother and she had time. She had a second to get things together. And I believe that's what gave her the strength as to why now she's divorced and has peace. Because she got that time out. And so many things happened that were trying to block her from getting that time out, but she got her time out. And so that's what I would say. If you can get that time and that space to sit down and just hear your thoughts and not constantly battling or running, you'll be able to see things you hadn't realized before and begin to build up your strength and prepare. And then another thing too is, they always want to, for some reason, I'm not sure what for them, it's another sense of power. For a toxic person to get an emotional rise out of you. Don't give it to them. Don't respond. Just it's almost like take a second. Take a breath and then continue. I can think of an example. I remember with an ex of mine one time. It said something that he knew ordinarily. So I generally don't have a temper. It takes me a second. But there's some things that if you say it, for everyone, there's some things like you say this, that means you want war. And you get war. And so he said something. And then I realized I was in public, there were people around me. So I'm like, hold on a second. I went to find a quiet space so I could rip into him, tear him to shreds. But the time I had to walk away from that space to another space where I had privacy to let him know how I felt, thought, like, don't talk him like, don't do anything. Chill, play it cool. I'm like, hey, yeah, oh, okay, sure. I could hear the surprise on the other end of the phone. Like, he was disappointed. He was shocked, like everything. And this was a phone call, wasn't even like, a video or anything. Like, it wasn't impressive. But the difference in my temperament had changed. I had a second. And it wasn't even intentional. I didn't intentionally give myself a second. But I just wanted to move to another room. By the time I got to the other room, I was thinking clearer. Nah, actually, I'm not doing that. What? Are you good? Oh, wonderful. All right, cool. He's like, going back and forth, looking like confused. You know how when you've been driving, looking for looking for a house and you can't find, you drive around, you circle around the cul-de-sac, come around again, nothing, no one's home. Didn't get a response. I remember thinking like, wow, that was my, like, I guess a very definite moment for me where I realized sometimes you don't always have to tell people what you're about. You don't have to show everyone that you're about that life. Sometimes you can sit back and look, like, okay, let's see. And that was a key moment for me to realize I don't have to show you that I can spar. Just be quiet. And to me, that worked more effectively. And then just, doing that. And then sometimes when they say inflammatory words, just kind of like that. Like when I said, like, oh, okay, yeah, it kills them. Begins to break down their armor. Now, like I said, I'm not an expert, but maybe some of these little tools I've mentioned can maybe help you if you're in a relationship with a toxic person, whether it's a friend, a romantic relationship, somebody you work with, a boss. Just finding ways just to not give them that, because once you don't allow them to have that power over you, that's the beginning of their end. And so that's what I would say. But as we go along, if there's anything more I'd like to share, but I've just been thinking, we're talking about this so much that what can I add to this conversation that might be useful other than saying, oh, you're a narcissist, or you're toxic, and you're this and you're that. No. So I hope this helped a little bit. So as we sign out, don't forget, please like, comment, or subscribe. Love, over and out. Thank you.